You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is Jose Mataro and Matt Gannon. Guys, welcome back to the show. It's another episode in the off season here. Excuse me, I'm still coughing. How are you guys doing today?
I'll take over from here. I'll probably be sneezing in a bit too. I think allergies are getting just about everyone. Lots of news for being what should be the off season for the Bullets. I'm looking forward to getting into some of this stuff.
Absolutely. We got some player grades coming up and, talking about the salary cap jump. We have an official number now. So, yeah, you're right, Joe, very news-heavy week for, a long off season. So let's get into her.
Yeah, it should be an action-packed episode. Hope you guys do enjoy. Don't forget to follow us on social media at RBLR Lightning or at RBLR Sports so you don't miss out on these future episodes. And if you don't know, we're going live right now. We're currently live. So if you want to be notified when we're doing that, highly recommend you go follow us at RBLR Lightning. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in right now. If you guys have any comments throughout the show, drop them down below. We'll talk about it too throughout the episode. So it should be a lot of fun. If you're here for the first time with us, thank you so much for joining. If you're coming back, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. All right, let's get into it. So first thing to talk about is some official NHL news. As the NHL officially announced that the cap, the upper limit is going to be $88 million, which is a big jump from the $82 that they were sitting at just a little bit before. So while some of us, including myself, may have already been in the assumption that it was going to be around that mark, we got the official numbers, and the Lightning have about $5.3 million in cap space. So a nice big jump, which has been much needed for the Lightning guys over the last couple of years.
I mean, it's going to come in handy, especially getting McDonough. So, we were having this conversation offline that you're focusing on the potential numbers and what was estimated, and I was more like just wanting to wait and see. And I kind of feel like that's what JBB is doing because it wasn't guaranteed money until they make the actual announcement. But now that the announcement's made, got to start wondering if some contract negotiations start to finalize between the Lightning and Stamkos.
I would hope so, because this team, more than any other team in the history of the league, has been affected by the flat cap. I mean, the pandemic did some numbers on the Lightning. They're not the only team to be affected by this, but a $6 million jump that helps a lot. But there's still plenty of questions. There's still we still got time to use it, but again, there's none of our questions have been answered, so it's still a very, very tricky situation. But we know what we're working with now.
I say, what's funny is like this isn't the first time too. The Lightning, when they won in 03-04, got kind of screwed by the lockout and then the salary cap then, because they had a lot of the players scheduled to come back for the next season, and then there wasn't a next season.
Yeah, can the Lightning stop winning their Stanley Cups at the worst possible times? What the heck, guys? You do it during the flat cap right now, and of course you lose a lot of guys because you can't just pay that cap or cup tax, as they so call it. But good news, the cap is jumping up. I will say this, it is projected to jump up quite a decent amount again next season, but those are just projections, nothing official as of right now. I think the projections are about $92 million, so we'll see where they are. Hey, this year it was actually higher than the projections. We got a little extra $300,000 than what it was originally thought to be, so nice little bonus there. It could be higher, could be lower, could be right on target. We'll have to wait and see, though, for that. Some other cap-related news. This is kind of a sad one. And listen, you guys know my biggest rival team that I just can't stand is the Washington Capitals. Well, if you need another reason to not like the Washington Capitals, turns out they are buying cap-friendly. This has not been announced by the Washington Capitals or cap-friendly, but according to Elliot Friedman, he put out a report saying that the team is buying cap-friendly and that this website is going to be going dark, I think, around after the draft. I can't remember the exact date they said it's going to be happening, but bummer news for the NHL and the fans. Listen, how many times we guys talked about Cap Friendly? We've been on that website all the time because it is so useful to know how much cap space you have, what the contracts are. Looking at you can mess around on the armchair GM stuff, and there's so much you can do on that website. It was by far the best website when it comes to contracts, and the Washington Capitals have officially purchased it, and they're keeping it for themselves to use that infrastructure.
Rumor has it they're turning it into an e-commerce swag shop. Cap Friendly is going to be where you can get all the official Washington Capital. Yeah, that's why they purchased it. It has nothing to do with wanting the guy behind the scenes and the infrastructure surrounding it.
They just wanted the URL. I can't blame them. It's a good name. So no, I mean, it sucks. And you said, guys like us using it. No, like actual teams use the website too. Like it is, one of the most valuable resources, available to hockey fans and teams. I don't really understand the move. I mean, I guess, they have every right to if they buy it, but I don't understand it a bit, and it's going to suck, but I do think that the absence will breed innovation. Somebody else might come up with something even better. These are all fan-made websites. Before Cap Friendly was General Fanager, who now works for the Vegas Golden Knights, the guy that made that site. So there's probably going to be some sort of, resurgence of some type of site like that. I really pray that there is, but I know even Caps fans aren't even happy about this decision. So it's just a big blunder in my opinion.
I've seen Caps fans joking around on social media like, "Hey, this is a win for us." Let's
really?
Go, yeah.
Did Jake really just ask on the sidebar if I was serious about what I was saying? Did he really just ask if I was serious?
I was real confused. I was like, what listen, Joe, you thought you were saying the cap was still at 82 million. You had me all confused about that in our sidebar conversation. So I wasn't 100% sure. No, but Matt, you are right. I know there's pictures out there of GMs in their offices, and they're using Cap Friendly. Like it was a widely used thing in the NHL. But we got a comment here from Daniel who says Cap Friendly wasn't the first, and it won't be the last. It's very true. There are other sites out there right now that you can still do similar things and look at contracts and whatnot, but it's just not nearly as advanced as Cap Friendly was. Cap Friendly was definitely the top one that everybody used.
With the 800-pound gorilla out of the room, there's going to be like anytime that there's a gap in power or open space, there's going to be someone that's going to step in because there's going to be opportunities to make a profit, especially with seeing that these guys that are making these websites are in the end getting jobs and entries into places that they usually wouldn't otherwise have access to. I think it's going to work out where that power void will be filled by somebody sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the bummer for fans themselves. It's obviously going to be a benefit to the Capitals that they can use that infrastructure. We'll see what is going to come from it, who will step up and who will be the new Cap Friendly. But just if you didn't know, Cap Friendly is going away, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it is what it is, and that's the way of the market sometimes. It's how things work. So this good for the guys at Cap Friendly though, because I will say this: they worked very hard on that website. They did a great job. I know they were working other jobs as well while they were doing that site, so I'm sure they got paid. I don't know what they never said how much it was to buy the site, but I'm sure they got a nice little pretty penny. So good for them to get that. But all right, let's jump into some other news for the Lightning. This is really we're going to kind of go with this with the news / player grades. Well, a couple of players we have lined up for player grades today. I'll just tell you now, we're talking about Emil Lilleberg, Waltteri Merela, and Maxwell Crozier. And Lilleberg and Merela have some news to go along with them, but we'll start things off with Lilleberg, and the news for him is actually a big congratulations because he went and got engaged as well. So congrats to Emil Lilleberg, who on his engagement. Awesome to see for him. Matt, you seem a little upset by that. You all right?
I'm heartbroken. I love Lilleberg, but man, I'm heartbroken. No, all jokes aside, congratulations for him. Hopefully him and his fiance are searching for a long-term home here in Tampa Bay. So ideally that would be the best situation involved. Maybe a deal's coming his way sometime soon. Maybe pay for a nice new engagement ring. So congratulations to the future Lillebergs.
Yeah, it's exciting things for him. And let's get into his season a little bit and how he did. Lilleberg was obviously one of the top rookies for the Lightning, I'll say. You know, we've always talked about many times on this show how the Lightning have always had one guy that's kind of jumped up, whether that be Ross Colton a couple years ago, you had Perbix the year before that, and now really it was kind of a mix of Crozier and Lilleberg. Lilleberg was the most consistent guy this year. That was the new guy on the block, you know, and he made a name for himself, no question about it. 37 games played this year, 5 assists for 5 points. He was a minus 15. Plus minus is always tough on the Lightning, especially because of the way the defensive system was this year, and hard for Lilleberg to come up into a new defensive system that really just didn't work that well overall in the season. But he made a name to himself very quickly, especially with his defensive play. He was pretty responsible, and a lot of guys really liked him. What did you guys think on Lilleberg this year?
Well, stepping into that plus minus, negative 15 obviously is a big number, but when you look at the first, I think it was 6 minuses, he 100% took his guy out of the play, completely neutralized them. That's what I was saying from the beginning when once he started playing. It's like, man, this guy really is good at wiping out his responsibility and make them a non-factor. Unfortunately, I can't remember who he was playing with in those first couple games, but they allowed the second player to essentially go unchecked and score, where Lilleberg's guy was like completely done out of the play, locked up, had no chance at it, and he had his defensive responsibilities, yet still gets the -1 on the play. He's a defensive defenseman. He's someone that can surprise you with a really big hit. He's not going to be someone that puts up a lot of points. Think of somebody that's a little bit. I'd say he's a guy that he's not going to make that pass. He's more of a Chernak that's going to be back and playing defensively. And we saw some really great stuff out of him, especially for what was it, 20? See, I got his age right here, 23. Yeah, 23-year-old rookie.
Yeah, I think everybody was super impressed with him. And you said it well, Jake. He kind of reminds you of Nick Perbix from the year prior. Hopefully Lilleberg doesn't fall off a cliff like he did. But
shots fired.
Yeah, call a spade. But no, everybody was impressed with Lilleberg. He came onto the scene quick and heavy with that one hit in that Ducks game. I can't remember who it was on, but immediately from then on, he captured my heart. Definitely, I know Joe as well. And Joe, you said it as well. It was never really in the first, couple of games he was playing, and pretty much, the entire time he was in the lineup, it very seldom was ever his guy that was the open guy. He always had his man. He was always the more responsible guy on his pairing, usually playing with veteran guys. I know Max Crozier, they were a pair for a little bit as well. And again, he was always the guy that was, had his guy. He was the responsible defenseman. So, we all loved what we saw from him. He was just smart. His positioning was very good. Defensive defenseman, but also at the same time, like, he could move the puck, and not in like a passing sense, but it seemed like it's hard to call him like a stay-at-home defenseman, because it seems like he would, roam around a good bit. Like, I would see him take the puck into the zone. Like, he was moving his feet. He wasn't slow, not an incredible skater. No flashy speed or anything like that, but he wasn't afraid to, move the puck up the ice himself, which is, to me, is an admirable quality. I know, it's easy to make the, off the boards and out, off the glass and out play, but he's also not afraid to skate it out of the zone or skate it, past center ice or something. I saw a lot of that, and even deep into the offensive zone. Not a lot came out of that, but he's versatile. He's a little bit more to me than a defensive defenseman, shutdown defenseman, stay-at-home defenseman, whatever you want to call him. I think his ceiling is extremely high. Like, again, from what we saw in, 37 games this year, I see much room for improvement. And, his floor, I don't see, getting much lower. We're all super impressed with what we saw from him this year. So if he's, as good next year as he was this year, I think we've got a good player for a good bit.
Yeah, anytime you can have a 23-year-old come in and impress a lot of people like he did the coaching staff, that's always a good thing, because for the most part, usually those guys will continue to learn. And listen, Lightning just got Ryan McDonough back. He can be a great leader in that locker room to help out as well, along with Victor Hedman, who's been here now. But, with McDonough coming back, that certainly helps as well. So Lilleberg, I think, definitely impressed a lot of people. He was really solid. And listen, it's good to have another defensive defenseman, because really the only one the Lightning had was Chernak for a while. Most other guys were more offensively minded. So, and listen, if Lilleberg's got a little extra offense in him too, never hurts to have at all. So if he can really get that offense going too, no one's going to complain about that as well. Overall for Lilleberg, let's go with the grades. Anybody got one they want to jump out with? You guys want me to start?
I'll go.
All right, Matt, what you got for us?
Like with all these players, you grade them, on a curve. Everybody's a little different, so you got to grade them relatively. And I might be very bold for saying this. I might get some weird looks, but I give him an A. Like, I thought, again, there was not many, detractors to his game. I thought most of the time I was happy with what I saw. If they were any mistakes, they were little mistakes. And, he, again, like I was saying, he's usually the responsible guy. So I didn't see a lot that really, takes any points away from him. Yes, there's room to improve, but for what the job that he was assigned, I thought he performed it not flawlessly, but very, very darn good this year. So I'm going with an A. Again, just great grade on a curve, solid A.
Yeah, I mean, that's he worked really hard in order to get a good grade. I agree with that. I am going to use a precedent, though, with Nick Perbix last year, who either I gave an A or an A+ to, and I don't think that he was up to quite that standard. So I'm going to, even though he did a really great job coming in, especially as like a rookie like he did, I want to give him I'm torn between a B and a B+. I'll bump it up to the B+ this time. And again, with Perbix setting the precedent before, that is something that's almost impossible to live up to slot right in as a top 4 guy. But I am really, really high on this kid. I think that there's going to be an immense upside in the future, and I think that B+ is a solid rating for your rookie year.
I 100% agree with you, Joe, because that's my grade as well. B+ for Lilleberg. I thought he was really solid overall. A couple little things that weren't great, but listen, he's a rookie. He's learning. So that's to be expected. Listen, if you're getting an A as a rookie, that's really good. Even a B+, as you kind of said here, that's really good as a 23-year-old. So I'm with you, Joe. I'm going with B+. And for any of our viewers who may be just tuning in, we're going over the player grades. If you guys have any thoughts on Lilleberg or any of the other guys we'll be talking about today, be sure to let us know down in the comments. Love to see what you guys have to say. We'll throw it up here on stream and talk about it as well. So, but yeah, Lilleberg, solid overall, and all of us, I think, pretty darn close. Matt, you went a little bit higher with the A, but you average that out, it's basically an A-. So, that's a good grade for him.
As I do want to just toss out, since we talked to Lilleberg stats, 37 games played, 5 points, -15. Perbix was 69 games played, 20 points, and a +11, just as a base of reference.
I
didn't know his plus-minus was that good.
Yeah.
He was a stud, man. He was a stud that year.
You go back to the Lightning defensive system, too, every time. It was a major change this year. It was so different for these guys, and who knows what it's going to be next year with the potential coaching changes, especially with one guy potentially going to San Jose as the head coach. Another comment here from Daniel as well. He has a question. Who gets bumped up to the 7th D-man next year, assuming they don't trade away Eric Chernak, Radish, Perbix, or Lilleberg? It's a good question. Guys, you got any thoughts on it before I jump in here?
My opinion, believe it or not, is going to be Perbix. I Radish. You remember how I all was on Darren Radish earlier this year, and he really, amended his game. He really did a lot to impress me later in the year. So, and then Perbix just really, really had a rough time this year. So, it can still be a rotating cast. It usually always is. It depends on game and situation, but just a blanket statement, I would say Perbix right now. But that's just my opinion. I know it's hard with him being a righty versus Lilleberg being a lefty. It's a hard answer, but my answer is Perbix.
You had a take on it, Jake?
I was just trying to remember all of our defensemen to get a good idea of what I think it's going to be. Honestly, I would say Lilleberg, just because he's young. I think Perbix and Radish have more. Obviously, they've been here a little bit longer, so they have a little more experience, and Lilleberg is still young. So I would say he's probably more the 7th D-man, unless he impresses again like he kind of did this year, and he's just that good where you don't want to leave him out of the lineup. But So I could see it like at the start of the season, it's Lilleberg, but very quickly, I think a guy like Radish could probably get pushed out a little bit more, or Perbix, depending on who's the hot hand. I think honestly, all three of those guys could kind of get rotated in that spot, and they could have just ride the hot hand and who's in the lineup. The Lightning are also known to go with 7th D-man, so wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of that next year as well.
I'd say my answer is kind of a non-answer. I think it's going to depend on how they look coming out of camp, and eventually one of them's going to get. You're going to like this one. Eventually, one of them's going to get Zach Bogosian and trade.
Become the greatest player of all time. Cool, I'm fine with that.
And traded because we can relieve a little bit of cap space and use them as a trade for some assets. Because we got a few guys that are there, and you don't want to let them just kind of rot in the AHL because we've got too strong of a D core in order to allow those guys to just sit down there when you might not even use them. They're worth more to trade.
Tell you what, that 7 though, when you look at Hedman, McDonough, Sergachev, Chernak, Lilleberg, Crozier. I forgot about Crozier too. And Perbix and Radish, that 8, that's a really solid core, I think, right there. So, yeah, man, Joe, I think that's a good point. Definitely one of those guys could end up being potential trade bait, especially depending on how Crozier does. They've got another few solid defensive prospects down there in the minors as well. So it'll be interesting to see, something to keep our eyes on once the preseason gets closer and training camp starts up around September, but something to watch closely for sure.
I was going to say, before we completely transition off that, I mean, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that if there's a deal to be done on Chernak, that even though he didn't look 100%, if you can get a cheap deal on Dumba, you keep him as well. I mean, if a deal can be made there, if you've got the cap room, I'd rather have him on the team than Chernak right now, to be honest.
Really, I'm kind of surprised, to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm 100% with you on that. I also just don't think there's the cap room to bring back Dumba. Because on
a cheap deal, like I said, it's got to be a cheap deal.
Yeah, even though with the cheap deal, like the cap's going to be so darn tight. Again, on the Lightning, we needed to go even higher, unfortunately. But it'll be interesting to see what JB does, no question. All right, to go to our next guy that we have, Waltteri Merela, whose name I still don't really officially know how to say. But there was some big news on him because he has signed with SC Bern of the National League. So Merela, who's scheduled to be an RFA with arbitration rights, he is going overseas to play hockey. The Lightning could still extend him a qualifying offer to retain his rights, but a big change there is he heads overseas and officially signed with a team. I know a lot of people were disappointed by this news because a lot of people did like Merela too. He was pretty solid in the games that he did play for the Lightning, but looks like he's going overseas, and it'll be a little more questionable on whether he's going to return as a Bull later in the year.
Yeah, I'm definitely a bit disappointed by it. I like parts of his game. He wasn't perfect. He didn't, make quite the splash that like Lilleberg did this year, but he did bring a bit of a physical presence in his game for being a younger guy, not fresh, out of the draft or anything, but he's in that, 22, 23,
25.
20, no, 25. Okay. So not as young as I thought, but I was, mildly impressed with what he did bring to the bottom 6. I thought he was, a fine, replacement level player, but, I also thought that he did have a bit of a higher ceiling. If we were just going on, his early season play and stuff like that, his grade might be a little lower for me, but I also, do forget about when he did slot back into the lineup later on in the year. I think it was when Connor Sherry was being healthy scratched maybe, or we were dealing with a couple other injuries up front. He got in later in the year, and those handful of games that he did play, I thought he was a force. I thought he brought a lot in those games. It was only a small stretch, like, 3 or 4 or 5 games, something like that. But he had, 3 points in those 5 games, let's say. I can't, exactly remember. I don't have the stats in front of me, but in those games, I remember him being not dominant, but a very welcome addition to the team. Just brought a lot back to the lineup when he was, when John Cooper told him he was going to be playing again. So a bit of a bummer, but you're saying there is a chance that we could qualify him, Jake? I'm confused on the situation. So.
It is my understanding that because he's an RFA, they still can't offer him a qualifying offer. It gets confusing. Again, it's another one of those, like, you got to have a degree in this kind of stuff to figure it all out. But yes, it is my understanding that they can still give him a qualifying offer to retain his rights. But he did sign overseas with a team, so I do not expect to. I don't think he's going to be back, until that contract is over.
Well, he only had one goal, no assists for the 19 games that he played. He definitely had some size coming in and would stir stuff up, but it's really hard to. This season's been a weird season to evaluate talent, especially on the offensive side when we're talking about the bottom 6 players, because nobody could get anything going, which is kind of a strange problem to have, where you just can't find a combination that gives you any sort of consistency. In the past, we've had players like Gord and Gord that would come in and do things, and now we just don't have anyone that's giving any sort of offensive life to our bottom 6 with this current roster, and makes you wonder with a guy like him if that's contributes to the fact that he wasn't putting up any numbers, or it's on its own that he just wasn't good enough for it, for the NHL. Because 19 games, he was a big body, and they gave him a look, but he's not going to get a huge player, a very high player grade for me. And the fact that he's going to Europe to play says to me that he probably felt that his opportunities were going to be limited in terms of getting a call up from the A.
He only had the 1 goal, no assists.
Correct.
Dang, I got my stats wrong. I should probably pull them up. No, I don't know. I don't think he played, again, all that bad, but yeah, he was just kind of another guy down there, just player X. He didn't do anything that really impressed. I thought, he could bring a little bit more being a younger guy. I remember there's a Finnish Lightning Instagram page who was super high on Merela when he was coming over. Like when we first signed him to the deal, he was saying this guy's going to be a superstar. So maybe I had a little bit of that in my head going into this season, and maybe had a little bit too high of expectations. So, but still, again, not a bad player or anything. I don't, remember him, us pointing him out or, making him out to be a villain like Connor Sherry or anything like that. Again, just not a roamer, if you will, but could have definitely brought a lot more. So yeah, he didn't really do anything to impress in his time. I'll still maintain, even though I got my stats wrong, when he did get back into the lineup, I thought he was a much better player.
He had a couple of games that he was positive. Like he had a +2 in a game without any points. He had another +2 in a game without any points, and several +1. So he may have been a contributing factor. Like maybe he makes a big check that turns over the puck and he didn't actually touch it. So he contributes to a play that he didn't actually touch the puck and get a stat on.
Okay.
He did play with a lot of like it felt like he was giving 110% effort every time he was out there. I think that's where a lot of people liked him a lot, because he did throw his body around a little bit and was aggressive. But the offense spark plug. That's a good way to put it. But his offense on the stat sheet never really showed up, I think, the way that some hoped it to. I don't know if you guys saw the comment too from Daniel. It is a harder transition from Europe to North America. You can definitely do it. Things are a little bit different though. So that is a factor there as well. But he was solid. I'm not as torn up as some other people are, because like you kind of said, Joe, he had the 1 goal in 19 games played. I think there's other guys they have down there in the AHL. And a lot of good prospects that they can bring up and be just as good, if not better, than Merela was. All right, let's go with a quick player grade for him. Not a lot to go off with 19 games played, but Joe, what do you got?
I'm going to give him a C-. Like I said, he was the fact that he came in and it did feel like he was stirring stuff up makes him feel like he was above average, but his stats were below average and didn't get much line consistency. So, C-.
Yeah, I'll go with just a solid C. Wanted a lot more from him, but there wasn't a lot that took away from him. Again, just, kind of an average guy. Thought the ceiling could be a lot higher, but just wasn't impressed with much that he did. So it kind of sounds brash to say, but yeah, just a solid C.
I was going to go with a C too. I'm right there with you, Matt. Again, small sample size and 19 games played, but for the 19 games that he was in, wasn't too much to complain about. So I can't really go lower than a C for me personally, but a little left to be desired when it comes to offense, though. Especially when it comes looking at the stat sheet with just the one goal in 19 games played. But he's going to be overseas. We'll see if he ever does come back potentially in years to come. But as of right now, not going to be with the Lightning next season. All right, next player that we got on the docket here is going to be Max Crozier. And Crozier is a fun one to talk about because he's another defensive prospect that kind of popped up out of nowhere that looked really solid for the Lightning when they needed some help on the back end defensively. His stats overall, 13 games played. He had 2 assists and was a -2. But another guy kind of like Lilleberg where, didn't play a ton of games, but he did impress a lot of people where when he came up, people said, hey, this guy seems pretty good. And being a rookie, there's a lot of potential to learn for him and to get better over the years. He is 24 years old, by the way, so a year older than Lilleberg.
I liked Crozier. I'm maybe not on the same level as like Michael, who thinks he's the best player in the NHL. That title goes to Zach Bogosian. But
yeah, you and Zach Bogosian. We might need to get a check mark for you mentioning Zach Bogosian at this point.
You probably should. But I thought he was fine. I know I'm kind of using this a lot, but just nothing spectacular, but not a whole lot to really take away from him. I thought he was a good puck mover, not necessarily the same type of player that Lilleberg was, who I guess is his best comparable, given, the amount of games they played together and all that, them being on the same pair. 2 completely different types of players, types of defensemen. So I thought he was a good puck mover. I think he's a little undersized, or at least that's kind of how he looks on the ice. I don't know his actual, height and weight or anything.
197.
Okay, so that pretty standard, I guess. But again, just good average. Whereas Merela was just kind of meh average. He was just good enough. I thought he could have played a little bit more. I wouldn't have minded seeing him in the lineup a little bit more. But I get, you're the 8th guy at best. So again, just, pleasantly average for Crozier. I really don't have a whole lot to say on him. Hopefully you guys have a little bit more than me.
I mean, honestly, I don't have a ton. I thought that he did well in his role, which was essentially every time that Chernak got a hangnail, you'd have him step into his place and eat up some minutes. And he did a pretty decent job of that. He wasn't a glaring gap in defense. He wasn't a liability. I say his worst game, just doing a quick scroll through of all of his games that he played, was his first game against Calgary. He was a -2. Everything else, maybe a -1, +1 in order to end up with his overall. What was the overall plus minus here? I can't quite see.
He was
a -1 overall. So he wasn't a big factor. He was playing bottom minutes, like 14 minutes a game. So he didn't get a ton of ice time playing on against third, fourth line guys, but he played that role well. And I think he's a guy that will be best served in the AHL and as an emergency call up when you need him.
Yeah, that could definitely be the potential role for him, especially at just 24 years old. So he's got some time. Maybe he could develop more in the AHL. I liked him for what we saw from him. I thought he was solid defensively. Not really any much complaints from what he did. Daniel, by the way, says here Crozier looked better than Fleury and DeHaan, which I can definitely agree with that. Again, smaller sample size for Crozier, but Fleury or DeHaan, I don't know about you guys, never really totally impressed me. DeHaan was solid, but
I'd say DeHaan, the only thing I'm going to say is he was extremely, extremely consistent. It just wasn't consistently good. I think we had him last game, and Fleury's the literal opposite of that. You never knew what you were going to get. He'd have an amazing game or even amazing shift, and then the next shift you're like, what the hell are you doing? How do you not cover the guy that's your responsibility on the backside?
I didn't see a whole lot of that from Fleury. I really didn't mind him. I don't know. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention, if you will, but I know a lot of people, hated Hayden Fleury, but I thought he was fine. I thought he was usable. So
okay, I retract my statement about the missing his responsibilities. Is more his puck movement.
Okay, I'll agree to that.
Fleury was inconsistent. I can agree with that. And he's a former first overall pick too. A guy that
First
had
round.
First round, right? Sorry, yeah, first round.
He was 7th overall or something like that. That's a high pick.
Top 10. All right, listen,
Yeah.
Joe, I see you smirking over there because I screwed that up a little bit.
No, I was just thinking about how ridiculous it would be to scout him so high as to be a first overall. That'd be some, they're seeing something that wasn't necessarily there.
Yeah, he was a high draft pick, and people had some high expectations for him, and he just really hasn't panned out, unfortunately, for his NHL career. So we'll see where he ends up. Actually, I don't even know. What is his contract situation?
I think he's a UFA, I'm pretty sure, or maybe an RFA. I'm not sure. But I think he's expired.
Pull it back up as I'm talking here. But to go back to Crozier, I'll kick off the grades for us while I'm looking this up. But I thought Crozier was pretty solid from what I saw. I liked it. I can't really go into the B's or A's because it was a small sample size. He didn't do anything crazy, but I would give him a C+. I thought he was decent, and I think he was a little bit better for the most part. So I'm going to go with C+ for a grade for Crozier. And by the way, I have Cat Friendly pulled back up here now, and I can't even find Fleury. So someone take a grade.
UFA. It's UFA. Yeah, after this season that just ended. I agree. C+.
Well, this is boring. C+.
Whoa!
Oh, is this the first time that we all three had the same grade? I think we might have gotten close once or twice.
I think each time we give somebody the same grade, we always say, "Is this the first time we've given them the same grade?" It's probably like the 4th time.
Well, it's not super common to have, but yeah, I agree with you guys. C+. I think
so.
For him and.
Jake, let me ask you this. Michael Wax, who sometimes joins us on the show, your partner in crime on the Bolt Report, he loves Max Crozier, and you talk to him a lot more than we do. Why is that? Why does he love him so much? What am I missing from that?
That's a great question, Matt. It's a question that you should ask Michael. We should have him on. I can't really fully listen. I think he's a solid defensive player, and when you have some guys, when it comes to that we're struggling a little bit, like kind of Fleury we were talking about, DeHaan. I know some people aren't as high on Chernak too. The defense as a whole was not good for the Lightning. We all know that. And I think because the defense was such a mess that anytime you saw a guy do somewhat good, even like Crozier, who were giving a C+2 overall, it looked really good. I think he looked better than he would have last year, for example, because the defense was just not that good this year.
You know what else looks good?
What's that, Joe? What looks that good?
I
was waiting for you to take it, but you wanted to let me go. All right, yes. Shop.rblrsports.com. Some amazing merch that does look fantastic. Highly recommend you go check it out. And for our amazing viewers here, you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off your order as well. We got Lightning, Rays, Bucks, Rowdies, Inspired Team merch. If you want to go there and check it out, links as always are in the description. Joe, you get an F- for that one. We're gonna take it.
No, you gotta throw all the info out there. I'm not good at throwing info out like that.
Yeah, he sent you the tape-to-tape pass for the one-timer, Jake. Come on, you had an empty net.
I passed it back. I did too many.
I asked a question. Mine was for.
And I said, what is it, Joe? And I was waiting for you to go, the amazing T-shirts. And then it's all right. Listen, it happens.
We'll work on it. It's off season. We'll work on some practice. Actually, before I forget, who's been practicing at the rink? It's been
Stamkos and Hedman.
Stamkos and Cooch, I know, have been on the ice a bit together, and so have Killers in town, Schuster's in town. And I guess they've been working on some drills with Jeannot as well, all at the rink here. So some off ice or some on ice work in the off season getting done already.
Saying their goodbyes to Jeannot, who might get traded. I'm kidding. Listen, there's rumors that he could get traded. By the way, you mentioned that, Joe. I found out today. I don't know how people found this stuff, but apparently there's a tea time that's happening in the Tampa area for the golf course, and Killorn, Hagel, and Paul are playing golf together relatively soon. So
when might that be?
In Tampa. I do not know when exactly it is, Matt. I'm not going to give it to you, so you can't go hound Alex Warren to come back to Tampa.
We'll go out there with the air horn.
On the air horn. Well, that's just mean.
On who?
Yeah.
On who?
Killer.
Yeah,
On Killer?
Hey, listen, it's always good to have those guys already working. Shows what this team can do and their dedication to the team. That's always a good thing, especially I think they all saw Nikita Kucherov and they're like, yeah, maybe we should do that too. We can have some good seasons as well. Cooch is Cooch. But all right, let's go to our last player grade that we have for today, and it's none other than Jonas Johansson, Johansson had a crazy year. Let's just put that's the simplest way to put it, where he was signed, expected to be the backup for the Lightning this year. And then all of a sudden we found out Vasilevsky had to get surgery and he was out for, I think it was like the first 2.5 months it was where he was out of the lineup, and Johansson got thrusted into the starting role where the Lightning were not expecting him to do that at all. But I think he was mostly up to the task, in my opinion. Johansson held his own throughout that first half of the season, really. He played in 26 games, had 12 wins, 2 shutouts, a 3.37 goals against average, and an .890 save percentage, which you look at the stats and take them for face value, it may not look great, but overall, I think Johansson played extremely well for the situation he was put in and for the defense that he had in front of him. I think he mostly kept the Lightning afloat to help them stay alive in that race until Vasilevsky came back.
Yeah, despite the stats, they do look a little bit rough. Just taking him, from the eye test, I thought he was a big part of the first half of the season, which, admittedly was a little rough, but he kept us treading water. I don't know if you guys know this, but Vasilevsky had back surgery to start the season, so I figured I'll bring that one back. So, no, I thought he performed well in his role, and I think the stats get a little bit dragged down from his the later season performances, some of the back-to-backs that, he was on the back half of. The consistency probably really did help him, early on being the sole guy, with Matt Tompkins stepping up, here and there. But again, just he was good enough to keep us afloat. And then, once Vasilevsky came back off of back surgery, we really, started to get back into rhythm. So again, just good enough from Johansson. He definitely overachieved a bit because coming in, Avs fans, and I forget which team he was on before that, everybody was saying he is flat out the worst goaltender in the National Hockey League. And, his preseason was spectacular. I don't know if you guys remember, but he had like 2 shutouts or something like that. And just, he was amazing in the preseason. So he did definitely break my expectations in a good way. So I was impressed, but again, the stats are a little bit rough.
Well, I mean, they were a bit rough, but the whole team was playing that new system and really not giving a lot of care for the goalie. They're kind of letting the goalie get hung out to dry in order to really drill in the way this new system was going to work. And it left Johansson, having to scramble while they're figuring it out. All of the hardest months or, games, I guess, were in the early months. And he took the brunt of that, but still kept them above 500 during it. It looks like it was, just judging by the game splits here, it looks like December 7th was probably one of his last games where he was the regular starter. And then he turned to his backup role where he got a win, a loss. It looks like he may have been chased out.
Well, he got injured later in the year as
was
well.
Was that the 17th game? Was he getting injured in the middle of the game?
He got injured in practice one day. Oh, he did.
He got injured in practice.
Okay.
I think he got chased.
He did get chased out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So a win, a loss, a win. So he was 66.6% of the backup starts that he had. He got the win for the Lightning and. Keeping him above 500 as a starting goaltender. He only had 35 starts prior to this in all the seasons that he played. So starting in 2019 with the Sabres before going to the Avs. So he actually, didn't really play that much, and he got 26 starts here. He got, getting close to half of his overall starts as a goalie in this role. And that's really tough to take the helm like that in a team with a completely fresh defensive system, a lot of new players in front of them, and in a desperate spot where they really need the to tread water in order for Vasi to come back. And I thought he did it surprisingly well. I thought he was going to be a story where, we're all blaming everything on Johansson. I thought he did great.
I remember when we signed him, and a lot of people said, yeah, this isn't they're gonna go well. I was optimistic on him. Matt, you mentioned it, it's like some fans were saying he was just not good. It's because if you look at his stats, like 2.9, this is goals against average, 2.94, 3.79, 206, 373, 747 out of nowhere, 210, and then this year at 337. So he was kind of inconsistent over the last couple of years when it comes to the stat line, but I think Joe said it best. Like, listen, he got thrusted into a starting role again on a team that was trying to do this new defensive system that just wasn't working, and he kept the Lightning above water. I was very impressed with him. I think you can't take those stats at face value. And I think with a full season under his belt, I think he can be a really solid backup goaltender for the Lightning moving forward. The one that had a new backup goaltender was like once every year, like constantly changing things. So I think he could be a guy that can move forward for Lightning and be that backup. He is under contract, by the way, for this upcoming season. He's got one more year left in his deal, and he is a next season. By the way, for anybody that's tuning in right now, welcome you guys in. Appreciate you guys joining us live here. If you don't want to miss out on future live episodes, you can follow us. What's so funny over this?
Well, we're kind of waiting for you to finish what you're saying because your internet connection dropped to potato quality, and then you were like right on the verge 4 times of kind of completing your thought, and then you moved on, and then we both I think started laughing. We were like, by the way, welcome in everybody to this podcast as you want. I'm sure it'll clear up in a second. I do want to point out, while we're talking about him real quick, is that he did have 2 shutouts in the regular season with Johansson, 0.89 save percentage. Vasi had 2 shutouts with a 0.90. Now, the goals against were significantly higher for Johansson, which you can't compare him to, like, arguably, the greatest goaltender that's playing the sport right now, and in a brand new system. So his stats, while they were low, even Vasi was struggling to take this team and get his own stats to be as high as they could have been.
And one thing too is, this team has been spoiled with, arguably the best goaltender of this generation for, half a decade or more now. So I'm not making this excuse. It might not even be true, but maybe some of the guys that are used to playing with Vasi got a little complacent. Like, if I miss this guy, don't worry, Vasi's got it back there. Oh, wait, that's Johansson. So maybe that played a bit of a factor into it as well, with being a little bit lazy in front of him because admittedly, yes, early season, the defensive scheme was a little bit lazy. So that might as well have played a factor into some of those, those numbers. He was getting, high shot volume, put on him as well. I don't have the stat in front of me. It was a while ago, but he was facing some of the most shots in the league, early on in the season, game by game. The defense was allowing so many shots on net, quality or not, shots are shots. So I do also think that did play a factor.
Yeah, I remember that stat was like he was like 30 or 40% higher with the amount of shots seen than second place was. It was really bad.
All right, hopefully my audio is still doing okay now.
You're good.
Okay, good. Let's go with the player grade for Johansson. Joe, you want to start us off?
I'm giving him an A.
Wow.
Wow, I'm surprised. I didn't think you were going to go that high.
I know. But look, he saved our bacon in a system that wasn't gelling very well. He kept us above 500, and then as a backup, you only really need a backup to win 50% of their games, and he was well above that.
It's because his wife's a goalie. He always takes the goalie's side.
Oh, she skates out. I play goalie if she's skating out.
Oh, okay. That's what. So that's even more indicative. You're the goalie, so that's why you're taking the goalie side.
Well, Matt, what are you giving up?
I can't be as generous. Again, very commendable with what he did. He did, help us, keep the season alive early on. But he didn't get a lot of help, and there were some games that he did impress with, but there were a lot of goals that just got past him that really as the season went on, as he transitioned to that backup role, he didn't get any better, arguably got worse. So again, extremely commendable for what he did do early on in the season, but I'm going to give him a B, which I still think is a generous grade. When you look at everything in a vacuum, you take away, the exact scenario and all that, it would be a little bit rougher. But with, actually what did happen, what transpired this season, knowing the background and all that, I'm giving him a B. He kept us above water and can't ask for much more than that. But, he could have been better. There was room for him to improve, to be better. But I still think B is a very fair grade.
Yeah, no question about it. I'm right in the middle of you guys. Not quite at an A, but not too low for a B. I'm going with a B+. I thought he was really solid for the Lightning. I think he's close to earning an A just because the stats, and even though it wasn't 100% his fault, were a little bit lower than maybe you would have liked to see them, especially considering where they were at in the middle of the season. But he was still he did his job. If we're just going off of like what he was brought in to do, I think he gets like an A, maybe an A+. Like he did what he did and even more. But overall, I'm going with a B+. Thought he was solid, but with you there, Matt, too. A little bit left to be desired. And hey, who knows? He could have another solid year now that he's going to be, hopefully, knock on wood, in a more consistent backup role where he's not having to jump up into these crazy new positions and wanting to have a new defensive system and all that fun stuff. So looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do for the Lightning next season. So, that's the big thing. Guys, anything else before we start to wrap up here?
You guys got any picks for a Game 2 winner?
There's a Stanley Cup final going on.
You're trying to start
more
fights?
interested in the Puck Cup that's going on right now, which I didn't even know was a thing until Eureka let us know, our producer, that's going on. Did you guys see that?
You didn't, apparently.
It was adorable, yeah. I mean, it was like was it Puppy Bowl that Animal Planet has on, except for hockey themed. I liked it. And again, I mean, you can tell by well, I guess your dog jumped down. Your dog was in the background earlier there, Matt. Definitely dog people.
I can't say I've watched it.
Yeah, where's game 2 of that? That's what I want to know. To answer your question, Matt, I'm going with Edmonton. I think they bounce back. I think they were the better team, but they just ran into a really hot goaltender in Bobrovsky, who's been playing great this postseason. To give him a lot of credit, but I don't think Edmonton's going to run into that every single game. I think they bounce back and even up the series 1-1.
I'm with you, Jay.
I do. I think they're going to run into that every single game. Bob is hot.
Every single game?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not saying a shutout every single game, but Bob is hot. He's been hot, and even though at one point it was 31-13 in terms of shots for Edmonton, they didn't really look like they were close to finding a solution to Bobrovsky.
Fun fact: the winometer on Puck Media it had it at like 84% in favor of the Edmonton Oilers. They lost 3-0, which I think is one of the highest percentages I've ever seen, especially for a shutout.
I say this over and over and over again when it comes to winning the Stanley Cup. You need a goaltender that's going to make all the saves you expect him to save, and a few that you don't. And right now, it's exactly what Florida has.
Bob was incredible in that game, and you can't expect the Oilers to play that well every game, and you can't expect the Panthers to play that poorly every game. Things are going to even out. If Bob can stay consistent, the Oilers are in for a rough ride. So,
well, heck, I mean, Stuart Skinner did it for the Oilers in Game 7 against the Dallas Stars.
Mm-hmm.
So it can happen for both sides. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. I should also mention too, Bobrovsky finally had one of his best games. Didn't have to help with the refs at all, and his goaltender. Anyway, so we're gonna move on. I'm kidding. He did play great. Don't get it twisted. I do have one quick question here before we end the show. Daniel asked, Stamkos' confidence level changed. So I'm glad you asked this though, because No, it has not changed for me because I've been operating under the assumption the Lightning have had $5 million in cap space for the longest time now. Joe did not. He was waiting for the official number, but for me, it hasn't really changed. I still expect Stamkos to be back. It's why I've been saying it for a while because I was ready for this cap jump to be made official.
Yeah, and I'll concede that. Like until that was actually written down, I wasn't thinking that it was going to be that much or hoping it would. And I know that JBB, he had to have been waiting for it before committing to anything. So I'd say it's pretty high now.
I'm with you, Joe. It's definitely, not extraordinarily higher, but I'm a little more optimistic. I've been optimistic the whole time, but just a little bit more now. So
what can
if you
I
see
say?
someone traded out, I think it would be imminent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no question. If someone got moved out and they didn't have space, it's a no-brainer. But maybe I'm just ahead of my time. I think that's the way I like to think about it.
Visionary.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning into this episode here on RBR Lightning. If you missed it live, by the way, don't forget to follow us on social media at RBR Lightning or at RBLR Sports so you get notified when we are going live. If you're new here, hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you're a returning viewer, hope you also enjoy the show as well. But don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. And that way you guys won't miss any future episodes as well. That'll do it for us on this episode of RBR Lightning. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Go Bolts!
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.